here from Bolens Diablo. And we'll be working on some Diablo gas tanks this week, so I thought I would take some time, take some pictures and some video, and kind of show you what I do to fix them up. First off, I want to talk about the different kinds of Diablo tanks you're going to run into. For the most part, this is a standard tank. This is a brand new tank. It's got a pair of ears on it. The outlet of the tank is right here on the bottom right hand corner as you're sitting on the machine. If you had a Diablo 500, there'd be a couple of bolts that go through the dash and into these ears. And if you got a 502 or 503, then these ears are just there, they're not being used. And I think what they did was it probably, Bolens probably made a bunch of tanks in 1966, 67, and then they used the leftovers into the 502 and 503. Now, you'll end up with some tanks without the ears, and that outlet in the same spot, that is obviously a later tank made for the Diablo 502 or 503. Then there's this other funny tank I run into on occasion. This is another brand new tank. You notice it's got no ears, and look where the outlet is. It's here on the side. So, 19 out of 20 tanks I see are probably like this, and there's a small percentage that are like this off the side. This is actually a screw-in nipple, so you could replace it if you had to. This one here is soldered in. One other problem you might run into with a Diablo tank is it's got a previous liner in already, and even though it's got a liner in it, it still leaks. So when that happens, there's just no way of getting the liner out, and to my knowledge you can't put a liner over a liner, so you're basically got a tank that's a dead stick. I suppose you'd have to sandblast the old tank out. And I've tried chemicals like paint removers, paint strippers, and that just hasn't worked for me. And you just have no way of verifying that the liner's out all the way around. So you'd have to physically take the tank apart, sandblast the old liner out, and try it again. And here's a tank, for example. This is one I went through a couple years ago, and by golly, I got a leak right up on the seam here, and I thought, again, a liner would take care of it, and it didn't. Now the good news is don't get rid of your tank. This neck here is a hard thing to reproduce, and we can reproduce the rest of the tank. So here's a brand new tank we have made. You see it looks the same. We got the ears on it, and there's the neck. And so don't throw your old tanks away at that point. At least let's hold on to the neck, and we can reuse the neck to make brand new tanks. And so while we're on the topic of brand new tanks, even a brand new tank needs a liner, because here we got, again, a steel construction, not a tin, and this will always also rust over time. So even though I got a brand new tank, I still take the time to clean it up and put a liner in it. So you got to start out with sandblasting. You got to sandblast the old paint off, and you'll see why later on why I do that. And if there happen to be some defects in the solder, you can try to fix those. I'm no expert on soldering, so I have a difficult time doing it, but with the right combination of solder and flux, you can fix up some holes. If you got a bunch of pits, a bunch of holes, there's no fixing that, because even if you get them filled in enough, chances are, even if you put a liner in, it's going to leak later on. A couple small holes maybe, but not a lot of small holes. The most labor-intensive part of cleaning these tanks is getting the rust and the debris out of the inside of the tank. So one way you can do it is just to grab everyday gravel and chains and whatever you want for aggregate inside of a tank. And of course I'm using KBS products again, so KBS has this clean, which is just a detergent, and what we got to do is we got to get every bit of the petroleum residue out of the tank, so gas and grease and all that, in order for the liner to stick. So you got to get the tank clean, and what I've done in the past is just taken the aggregate and inside the tank with the cleaner and shake the tank, But you literally need to shake those tanks for like an hour or more, depending on how bad they are. So I've come up with this little contraption. It puts 2 tanks in one direction, 2 tanks in the other. I fill it up with the materials I need in the cleaner, and I turn it for 30 minutes one way. And then I take the tanks off and flip them around so that they're in the other direction, and I run another 30 minutes. Once you've cleaned the tank with the detergent and the aggregate, it should be clean inside. You know, as fuel evaporates over years, time and time again, you get this really thick sludge in the bottom of these tanks. And on the sidewalls too. So you want to make sure you can look inside here and not see any of that. And I wish I could show you what the inside of these tanks look like after they're on the rotisserie, but they're just spotless. They're just as clean as the outside of the tank. So you really need to put the effort in to get your tank as clean as you possibly can before you go on to the next process. So once it's clean, it's rinsed off pretty well, and it's dried somewhat. You use the rust blast material chemical to treat the rest of the tank. Any sort of rust that might be left over deep in the pores, it counteracts that. It preps the surfaces to accept the sealer that we're going to install in the last step of the process. And you'll see when after that's done, it becomes kind of chalky, maybe discolored a little bit, and that's just the rust blast doing its job. When your tanks are finally cleaned and you've done all the prep work, you've got to get them dry. And I found out that no matter how much air you force into them, like with a compressor, you just can't get them dry on the inside quickly. So I use a box fan and I set them on the side, and I blow air into the inlets. And after a couple of days they dry out. But if you don't do that, they'll go weeks without drying out. And when you do that, then they get rusty inside again. You got to start all over. So get them dried out as soon as you can. And this seems to work for me. When it comes time to seal the tank, it's nothing special. You need to make sure you have enough material. And again, I'm using KBS products, but there's all kinds out there. For this process, we're putting it in, and all these tanks you see on the side here, I've poured the liner in and I've rotated them around nice and slow. And now I've got them draining, and that's really part of it. You want to get as much drained out as you can. Because if this material puddles on the inside, it'll bubble after a while, and it won't make a good seal. So you want to get as much of the material out as you can. Now you've got maybe an hour or two to get it out. So take the time and drain it out good. And then what I like to do is paint the outside of the tank with the same leftover material. So you have a liner on the inside and a liner on the outside. So once you got the liner on and it's cured, it comes out really nice. It's lined on the inside, lined on the outside. This tank ain't ever rusting again. And if you got some drips on it and stuff and that bothers you, you can take a light grinding pad and just zip them off, and then you put a coat of satin black on it, and look, you got a brand new tank again, and you're set to go. So that's how I go through my tanks. And again, you can get products from anywhere and do the same to yourself. All the work is in the preparation. Putting on the liner is easy, but if the tank isn't clean and the tank isn't dry, then you'll have problems. And once you put a liner in and it cures, there's no fixing it after that. So do the best job you can up front, and you'll have success lining a tank. So that's my tank tutorial. If you've got questions, you can always give me a call. I've got relined tanks available for sale if you want to exchange yours. I've also got brand new tanks if you're interested in a brand new tank. So hey, I'm Bruce at Bolens Diablo. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.